about it, and they were talking about you, and I said, "Do you not realize that he will argue with a wall and he'll win every time?"
That's been this way since I was a child and learned to speak.
I mean, I learned that about you a long time ago, and I was like, well, it's either I want to argue with you and I really feel real strong about it, or I just acknowledge that I'm going to have an argument and just own it.
Hey, second place is the first place loser, and I argue to win every time.
I
There's
know
no
you.
denying that.
I no denying it. I totally agree with you. Totally
Mm.
agree with you.
Okay, let's
Well,
do our check notifications and all that. Yeah, what are we going to talk about?
well, I don't know what we're going to talk about. I was hoping you were going to tell me.
Oh, whoops. Well, this could be dangerous.
Is
So,
is there anything to talk about?
hmm, might be, might not be. Let me see. Are we actually? Oh, yes, we are live. Why didn't I get my Facebook notification? It shows we're live though.
Well, I mean, Zuckerberg is probably colluding with the good old boys, but didn't you hear I'm on team good old boy now, from what I understand.
What? You already switched sides?
Well, that's what they said. They said something about, but the problem with that is when they started accusing me, I was already banned from the page. So I couldn't even respond.
I'm confused. I mean, look, contrary to popular belief, you and I don't share every bit of information that we come across or things that we do. I mean, some people think we do, but we don't. But this is news to me. Breaking news on bossierwatch. Duke has switched sides, apparently. You're now a gob?
Apparently, I'm a part of the Gob network. I mean, I didn't know myself, but I was told I was.
Hmm.
Yeah, we
Hmm.
are on X. We're going, by the way.
Oh. Oh, okay. Well, we are on Facebook. I'll assume we are on YouTube. Y'all let us know. Is anybody watching from YouTube out there that can respond and make sure that we're on YouTube?
Well, hey, I mean, probably that's why there's not many folks here right now before we go to the break. But did you realize that the JFK files are being released today?
No, I did not, and now I am intrigued. We're going to have to cut this show short.
I mean, you must be living under a rock, but I can tell you one of the first discoveries has already been put out in the public, and y'all are able to see it right here.
Is it
I was
that JFK is dead?
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I think that's pretty
Oh,
clear,
okay.
but I'm just saying one of the first pages of all of the documents, they said there's like 88,000 documents or something, but one of the first
Wow.
pages has already been put out there. And it's
Hmm.
like, it's amazing.
I'm very intrigued. So where has this been? I mean, I guess it's on all the social media channels. I can probably just
Yeah,
Google up a link.
it probably is, but I found the one page on X, and I think people are going to be shocked. I was
Hmm.
shocked.
Really? Well, now
Yeah.
you've really got me intrigued.
Well, we can go to the countdown. We can come back. We can show everybody,
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
whatever you want to do.
Yeah. Well, we can go ahead and go to the countdown. I'll just put up a couple of people watching. Val Baker's watching from the big town of Doylean. Cassie Rogers is watching from YouTube. And of course, Ricky Bridges is here, and Miss Ann Bolton is here. And our good friend and future city councilwoman, Ruth Pope Johnston, is in the house.
Hey, hey, there's Ruth.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, let's go ahead. We've got a guest coming on, and he's going to go over some of the amendments, and I think specifically really Amendment 2. So we'll have him on shortly after the break. But let me go ahead and hit the magic button. We'll go ahead and go to the break now. Folks, if you're watching and new to the show, this is the point where we have about a 2.5-minute intro. We ask everybody to like, share, and tag people. Even send them a text message, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, whatever, to help get the word out that we're talking about stuff tonight. We're going to go over specifically Constitutional Amendment 2. We have more Robert Berry stuff. This is going to be a fun night. I think some more stuff on Vince. We got some video where you were chasing stuff around, and Well, we need to mention a little bit about the Bossier Parish
Well,
Police Jury.
well, wait a minute. I don't know if I was chasing stuff as much as I was being chased.
Oh, so you weren't the
Someone,
rabbit, you were the hound. No,
someone
you
was,
would be the rabbit.
someone was chasing me.
Ah, see, this could be very interesting, folks. You never know what you're going to see on Bossier Watch on a Tuesday night.
It's crazy, 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 crazy. But we're going to show y'all all.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to hit the countdown button, folks. Y'all know the drill. We will be right back. Go make you a stiff drink. Go make you some popcorn or whatever you need to do. We will be back in about 2.5 to 3 minutes. Here we go.
Folks knew a lot of the back office on the politicians that they think walk on water, they would be shocked. You know, there's an old wound from a knife in my back that just is giving me heck lately, and it's just really irritating, so I have to kind of wiggle around a little bit.
And I titled it A Shot Across the Bow of the Good Old Boys.
Just, you know, they feel helpless, they don't feel heard, they have nowhere to turn.
Some Republicans as well believe that government has the answers. And let me tell y'all something. I don't know anything government does well. Nothing.
Aren't there laws that say that you have public meetings so that the public can have accountability of their elected officials?
As a member of the media, I'm very concerned about what I've just heard.
Well, I'm not thinking Star Wars at all. I'm thinking zombie apocalypse. Oh, folks coming from the border down there?
Yeah, it's going to border. It's actually going to Mexico, the buses.
Doesn't mean they interpret it the same way that I do. For instance, the Second Amendment. I take it very literally. That's been interpreted different ways in the court system all the way up to SCOTUS. We're still right now combined on both pages and YouTube at 264 people watching. That is amazing, folks. Through conscious, shocking actions, which in turn would enrich sitting city council members Scott Irwin and David Montgomery Jr.
In theory, you know, it's an every week thing. We got to double check and make sure it's like a miracle any of this actually works. This live broadcast is brought to you by the Outdoor News, fishing and outdoors for our area. Acadiana Mortgage, over 25 years in the mortgage business. Pelican Training and Consulting. Reach out to Julie Ferris. Smarter Geek, making technology easier. And folks sharing information and watching out. Now, grab your popcorn and a drink. Here we go. Here we go, and here we are again for the 250 plus, actually closer to 300th time when you factor in Louisiana Watch that we have abandoned again.
I know. We're going to have to, I don't know. We always say we're going to have to do this or do that, and we have all these big plans about doing it, and then we get sidetracked just on these, squirrels.
I know. I said, we weren't going to do this again, but here we've done it. All right. So, yeah, Friends of Sobo, that's the group. Did you not share into there?
Well, I don't know. I don't, maybe I did, maybe I didn't. I don't know. Maybe I'm losing it and getting old here. Maybe I just need to retire. Yeah, Friends of Sobo. I think I did. I don't know.
Oh, well, I don't want to double post it because then we'll probably get banned from the group. But, all right. We're good anyway. Heck with it. Everybody will watch or not.
Yeah, Bob Baker says, happy anniversary 250th. Is that anniversary worthy? I don't know.
Yeah. We hadn't really done a anniversary edition, I guess. Happy anniversary, Duke. Happy 250th.
Well, anyway, like I was saying, the JFK files, did you hear? And it's out, and I got to tell you, there is one particular page that has already hit everybody, and it's out there, and it just blows me away. And I think all of our viewers are probably going to be shocked by it.
Okay, but you got to tell me. You can't leave me in suspense. Am I supposed to share a screen or something here, or are you just going to
tell us? Note. Remember, we have notes and
those pesky notes. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's the X deal that I pulled. Well, see, I'm just not with it tonight.
I keep forgetting this is your 250th anniversary. I guess at 300,
You,
remember we have notes.
yeah, you would think I would finally learn that, but apparently not. Okay, is this the screen that you wanted to
Yeah,
share?
that is the one right there.
to to whom it may concern, I have information that will lead to the arrest of Hillary Clinton. That is what got JFK killed.
Now it all makes sense. Who knew?
Who knew? That, he started the trend way back then in 1963, way before my time. Well,
Yeah.
all right. Well, this is going to be interesting because I want to dig through those files and see what's up. But before we get to those JFK files and digging through all those, we've got some files here within Bossier and within the great state of Louisiana that we need to dig through, starting with these constitutional amendments. So I figure we'll kind of, ramble on for just a few minutes and maybe cue our guest to come back here in about 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah, well, what is all this hubbub about these illegals and the TA and what's going on there?
Yeah. Let me do a little share screen on that. Hold on just a second here.
I'm hearing there's some raids in Bossier City going on.
Well, there are. So let me see here. Let's see if I can get this thing over here. And so I don't know if anybody y'all saw this letter, but it's a letter from Danny McCormick to Chris Crackman, who is one of the Caddo commissioners, a good friend of ours over there, and of course so is Danny McCormick as well. But apparently, Mr. Chris Crackman had inquired about a potential ICE enforcement action involving employees at the TNA truck stop up there in Austin. And so that Danny says he received information from Rep. Jay Gaye, I hope I said that right, Chairman of Homeland Security, indicating that a total of 7 individuals were detained and subsequently deported. It appears that these individuals were found to be in violation of federal immigration laws, prompting action by ICE. They recognize the importance of transparency in these matters, especially given their potential impact on local businesses and the broader community. So I just got to ask, I wonder if any of these immigrants were some of Jeff Darby's friends.
Well, I mean, I guess they could have come in by virtue of that, program that he was advocating for, that Vince Maggio, sat over there and was quiet about, but allowed the public to be thrown out of the council meeting over. It could be related to that. It very well could be, but I digress. Those are lies, just lies that, Vince sat there quiet and didn't say a word and, allowed Alice Boyer to be thrown out. It's just outright lies.
Just lies. And folks, we've got several videos. I think I need to reshare that video too, and post about this letter that Darby signed on to, basically advocating for immigrants to be brought right here in the good old city of Bossier.
It would be probably a pretty amazing thing if I started hitting a lot of the rental houses in some of the impoverished areas in Bossier. I wonder how many illegals they would find in rent houses and whose rent houses they were. That would be interesting.
Oh, that would be interesting. Seems like we touched on that topic a while back. That would be a very interesting deal. We should do it, what's that guy's name? James O'Keefe? We should do it James O'Keefe style.
Yeah, that would be good. And while we're at it, we could tell them all, look, you can go get, well, I'm going to stop. I'm going to quit before I cross the line. See, I was going to say something I probably shouldn't have said. Get me and you both in trouble. So
remember, no takebacks. It's a live show.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So anyway, just lies, and
more lies.
What can I say?
Damn lies.
More lies. That's all we do is just Bossier Watch. We just lie, and did you see that we have no interest in Bossier City? No standing, no nothing. Why do we even care? We just
you outsiders from Benton up there that have no business down here in Bossier. Oh wait, you do have a business here in Bossier. As a matter of fact,
that's right.
Matter of fact, you've been in Bossier way longer than me.
Yeah, I started out in fact, I took my first breath of air in Bossier City at Bossier Medical Center in 1970.
Wow.
And, you know, I spent 20 years on the Bossier City Fire Department, giving blood, sweat, and tears, and needle sticks, and burns, and whatever else you want to call it as a fireman. Yeah, that was nothing. And then had a business there with my wife for 27 years. But I guess all of that, you know, according to the Maggio campaign, those exclude people from being able to have a voice in Bossier City. You should not be able to have a voice in Bossier City.
Well, I wonder what would happen if all the people that don't live in Bossier City proper stop spending their hard-earned dollars in the local businesses in Bossier City. I wonder if that would have any impact whatsoever on our good city and those tax dollars that they love to spend on stupid monuments.
I don't know. I guess they would just have to start building monuments outside the city. Then I guess I don't know. I just
and look, in full disclosure, I live in the Bossier City limits.
so you have an interest.
Yes,
How about that?
I have lived here for the second time now since 2005. I'm not from Bossier, though. I was actually born in Shreveport and spent half of my life between, well, I guess you would say thirds, between Monroe, Ruston, and Haynesville, Louisiana, of all places. Although I spent most of my time in Ruston, and I say I'm from Ruston. So just, want to get that out there since Duke and I lie all the time. I think they're calling you more of a liar, and our good friend, the Colonel, and Wes Marriott, and Cassie Rogers, and all those folks, they're calling y'all liars.
Yeah, and I think what they're trying to say is the things that we are saying that are as painful to their ears are what the lies are. And I think it's more about that they don't want to hear them because they don't want to acknowledge them. But yet we constantly offer, and we will do it again right now, the opportunity for a designee of the Maggio campaign or a designee of the good old boys. I mean, or any of you who say that what we are saying is false, untrue. In some circles, y'all call it a lie and whatever, or trash talking or whatever. If you would like to challenge us in a respectful debate, you're welcome to come on this show, and we will give you your say. We will give rebuttal, and then you can give rebuttal. We'll do it debate style. We'll do it fair and square. You're welcome to come. We're here on live video being recorded. Why can y'all not defend your positions? You can say it, kind of out there behind the backs. We're not saying it behind your back. We're right here. Let's talk about it. And in fact, I'll tell you what, we're going to go through every one of the charges, Rex, that have been leveled against Mr. Maggio. We're going to go through them, and we've got the sources to back every single one of them up. All of it.
What's funny is in 250 plus shows, folks, do y'all know how many of our local politicians have taken us up on that offer to come on the show? And they have our phone numbers. That's not the issue. They know how to get a hold of us. How many times, Duke, can you remember, how many times has someone come on here to actually challenge us other than we just do an interview?
Nope. I do remember one, maybe two.
Okay.
One, maybe two. Chris Smith.
Yes. He got his feathers ruffled by a comment that I made, and that was fine. He came on, but so credit to Mr. Smith. Anybody else? Can anybody else remember anybody? I
think Brian Hammonds came on when we made that challenge on something, but it wasn't confrontational. It wasn't that we disagreed on policy or an issue, but I think he just came on to try to clear up the issue, but it wasn't planned. It wasn't scripted. He just came on.
Yeah. And so there you have it, folks. Now you know why. I think I can speak for Duke as well. We both have a lot of respect for Mr. Smith and Mr. Hammonds, even when we sometimes slightly disagree. On balance, we agree with them on probably 98% of everything because they're stand-up guys. They'll come on here and speak their minds. Credit to them.
Yeah, and a lot Well, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
That's
we
all right.
could ramble on. All right, so let's get to these constitutional amendments. You ready to bring our guest on? He's been sitting there waiting now. He might be asleep.
Oh, I didn't know he was there. I thought we were still waiting on him.
No, I thought you heard him buzz in. So anyway, let me switch
See,
screens. Hopefully this will work.
So he will understand now that we are actually amateur journalists.
Yes, completely
just trying
amateur.
to get along in the world. This is what amateurs do. This is how they do a show.
Look,
Lord Jesus, we got a professional here.
No, not at all. I appreciated the extra time to get ready and rest. I did one right before. I'm not a professional at all, but somehow I get volunteered to go out and spread the gospel of the constitutional amendments.
Well, it seems, my friend, it seems there's a lot of confusion, and some of it is meant to be intentional. I mean, we've learned that from some things in Bossier City with our charter amendments and term limits. But regarding, and actually, it's kind of weird because, especially the Amendment 2 that you're going to talk to us about primarily, some of the arguments I think being made against Amendment 2 are some of the arguments being made on the term limits issue in Bossier, and there's actually a comparison there. But when we go through these, and do you have a role in any of these amendments? I mean, because you're all in the mix in the legislature and stuff. I mean, what's your role in this? What makes you a subject matter expert?
Yeah, so I was I actually no longer work there. Started a new venture about a month ago, but throughout the entire special session that Governor Landry called, mainly dealing with tax reform, but also putting these other 3 constitutional amendments on the ballot in addition to Amendment number 2. I was at the Department of Revenue working hand in hand with the legislature, with Governor Landry, with Secretary Nelson from day one back on the last one. I said it feels crazy to say this, but the amendment that y'all are all voting on in 11 days, we started the work on this basically day one of the Landry administration. He came in and Governor Landry gave Secretary Nelson a directive and said he wanted to do something big and bold to reform the tax code in Louisiana. And that, he didn't want any excuses that, for forever people have talked about doing something big, doing tax reform in Louisiana, getting to a place where we eliminate the personal income tax, and nobody's ever taken a step towards it. And he said no idea was too big and that we were going to swing for the fences. And Amendment 2 before you, I know I hear it all the time. It's confusing. There's so much in it. There's, it's hard to understand. I'm just going to vote no because there's so much in it. I think that's the worst thing anybody can do, because it's really the work of Governor Landry and this entire administration that said, hey, what's the best way we can fix the problems that have plagued Louisiana forever, and go to the voters with one thing and say, hey, here's how we fix everything that we've complained about. There's too much in the Constitution. Every time that there's a budget deficit, we go for higher education and health care. We have no flexibility to cut spending so that we can cut taxes. And Amendment 2, really, if I have to boil it down, it does all of those things. It fixes those problems, everything we've complained about forever. It gets rid of constitutional dedicated funds so that we can really let legislators go in and take a look at how we spend every penny. It creates a government growth limit. We say government has grown way too fast. It really has. For 10 years during the previous administration, government spending in Louisiana vastly outpaced population growth and inflation. We were actually losing population and growing at a faster rate and spending more money at a faster rate than inflation and our population gain. It's unsustainable to be losing people and spending more money. So this creates a government growth limit to really restrain the amount that the legislature can grow government spending. And that's really the only way we're ever going to get rid of the income tax. We talk about getting rid of the income tax all the time. If you allow the legislature to continue to grow spending, we're not going to do it. This gives us a tool to do that. Part of that is also saying, prior to the tax reform session, the top maximum income rate in Louisiana was 4.25. The Constitution capped it at 3.75. 4.75. We bring that cap down to 3.75 to say the legislature can never raise income taxes higher than they were last year, unless the voters let them. And I don't see the voters letting them do it. A lot of the constitutional dedications and a lot of the funds, we pay down $2 billion in debt. I think that if there's any conservative principle I've ever heard, it's paying down debt so that we can save money in the long term. There's all this talk about government efficiency and finding ways we can save money. Taking $2 billion out of constitutional dedicated savings accounts that earn about 3-4% interest. I think, most people here probably run household budgets or run businesses where you invest a little bit. If you're earning 3.5 to 4% on one account and you have $2,000 in there, but you have $8,000 in debt that's paying 7.5, 8% interest, you're taking that savings account money and paying down that debt at that high interest rate. And that's exactly what Constitutional Amendment 2 does. We talk about the teacher pay raise. The way we find the money for that is not by raising taxes. It's not by cutting any other program. It's saying we have $2 billion sitting in these savings accounts that earn less than 4.5% interest. But we also have $8 billion in debt on teacher retirement expenses that we pay 7% on. Just making that one change alone, we're saving 4.5% on every penny we spend on teacher salaries across the state. And that's enough money to guarantee them the current pay raise they have going forward. And then there's even additional savings on top of that most school districts will realize. So
Hey,
all in all, I think there's a lot of wins here.
Let me interject a question there. So educate me a little bit. How much does the state actually pay teachers?
So I'm not
Give or take.
sure with this. It's a very small percentage of their salary. So the state
Right.
has, of the current teacher salary, the state has the current $2,000 stipend that we're talking about right now. So that's what would no longer be an expense to the state. The school districts will have the money to pay that, and then some additional savings on top of that with this debt payment. There's a couple of other pay raises of a couple $1,000s within teacher salaries that are contained within the MFP, the state aid formula for school districts. Now the benefit of this is those also become cheaper. So that's an additional about $15 million in savings to the state just from not paying that interest. So the school districts are responsible for the vast majority of teacher salaries because at the end of the day, these are local employees.
Yeah, that's what I was driving at.
Yep. Yeah. So right now the state pays this stipend every year, and that's a responsibility on the state taxpayers to pay that for every school district. What this amendment says is we're giving the school districts the ability to do that within their own budgets just by saving them money on the existing contributions to their employees' salaries.
Okay. And so yeah, go ahead, Dick.
Well, let me get in here. So, one of the big arguments, one of the big attacks has been trying to, as I appreciate it, utilize the argument about churches and taxing assets of the churches, and that this is just a stealth way of being able to go after taxing all the churches. Now, Jeff Sadow had a great article I saw up in the Hayride where he was pointing out that what legislator or politician is going to seek to raise taxes as I guess you could say, the simpleton argument that this isn't accurate. What legislator or politician is going to advocate for taxing the churches? But from your perspective, tell us about that argument and where that fails.
Yeah, I'll tell you, if you read the text of the if you read the actual bill text itself, I'm going to pull that up real quick.
Yeah, try section 35B.
It contains stronger protections for churches than currently exist in law. And I'll just go real quick on the kind of where that argument is coming from. So right now, the Constitution contains very broad exemptions for nonprofits of all types. Churches fall under that exemption. It's very broad, and most states don't include that broad of an exemption for nonprofits in their Constitution. In fact, we're one of the only ones. But what we did want to do is we want to say, and when we talk kind of over some of the other amendments, you'll see one of the common themes in our Constitution that I know all of y'all and all your listeners know is we put too many details in there. We restrict the hands of the legislators and the voters too much, and we have to come back and ask y'all to make fixes time and time again because we put too many details into the Constitution. So what we decided to do was to take almost all of the property tax exemptions, except for really some of the ones that I think are most important to the voters, that the voters have said time and time again they want the highest level of protection for. One of those being the homestead exemption that will remain in the Constitution. But on the churches, we said, let's make sure that what the voters have spoken on is that they want to make sure that their church property, the sanctuary of the church, anything that's related to the actual religious mission of the church is never taxed. And Chairman Julie Emerson, who carried this piece of legislation, has a wonderful piece in the Center Square that you can read about kind of the details and thought behind some of this. But it was like, let's make sure that we give an additional protection to those actual religious institutions, those pieces that are the houses of worship, that are the sanctuaries, that are the parsonage, and then put the rest of everything else that pertains to all other nonprofits, not churches, into state statute, where it still enjoys a higher level of protection at a 2/3 vote to change. So basically, it would take, to ever tax a church property, it would take a 2/3 vote of the legislature and a vote of the people, which is current law. Nothing is going to change. If Amendment 2 passes, the day it is certified and every change in it takes effect, no church property, no religious property, and no nonprofit of any kind that currently enjoys a tax exemption will be taxed. There is no tax exemption that will go away with the passage of Amendment 2.
All right,
The
but
only
wait a minute. I want to
would be
challenge
in
you right there.
statute, where it has a 2/3 protection, which is higher than any exemption enjoys in law currently.
All right, so I think it's Section 35B of HB 7 says, and I think I've got the quote right here, but property owned by a nonprofit operated exclusively for religious purposes as a house of worship, residential housing for clergy, priests, nuns, blah, 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 or other educational institution training individuals for religious memory shall be exempt from ad valorem taxes pursuant to the section. Now, the problem that some folks have that I've seen in the commentary is that this is narrowing the scope down. And you just alluded to it when you said that the church property that is used for the mission will not be taxed. Well, by the opposite side of that coin is the rest of the church property is now potentially being opened up where it could be taxed by the legislature. And I think that's where some people either are confused or they're not sure about.
No, absolutely.
Rex, let me answer that. James, how much property tax does the state collect?
The state collects $0 in property tax.
Okay.
The only reason this would ever change is if local governments came to the state and asked for more money in taxation, and this was the way they wanted to do it. Because right now, there's no skin in the game for the state when it comes to increasing the property taxes at the local level. And Rex, to your point, that language that you just read in the Constitution, in the current Constitution of the current nonprofit exemption, that language is contained in House Bill number 11 by Representative Dara Dusatel. It is word for word that same language that exists in the current Constitution is put into statute, and it requires a 2/3 vote of the legislature to ever change that. And again, to Duke's point, I don't see 2/3 of the legislature agreeing to go tax church and nonprofit property to pay for, to raise revenue for the local governments, not even to raise revenue for the state. One of the things I hear is we can't trust the state when there's a fiscal cliff not to come after us. Well, if there's a fiscal cliff, taxing churches and nonprofits is not going to raise a penny of revenue for the state because there is simply just no state property tax.
Well, that's true, but one of the other arguments, and again, personally, I think all churches should pay taxes. That way they could talk about what they wanted from the pulpit, whether they want to talk about politics or not. I mean, as a matter of fact, I know a couple of churches that do not have nonprofit status, so they get to talk about what they want. But I think part of the issue is, to Duke's point, that correct, those are property taxes, and this shifts more of the burden to the tax assessors, which some people are not necessarily comfortable with. Again, I'm not advocating for or against it. I'm just presenting some of the arguments that I've seen online about it.
Right, but I do want to be clear, it would not shift any power to a tax assessor, because that property, every single property that currently enjoys an exemption will still enjoy an exemption in state law, which is the way that many other states, Alabama, Florida, all 49 states except for Louisiana, maintain some sort of property tax exemption in state statute. And that applies broadly to churches, broadly to any property really used for a religious purpose. And I think it would take a very scary shift in our culture to ever have a legislature where you would not have, and just to put this into very real numbers, you need 37 people in the House to vote no, and 11 people in the Senate to vote, 12 people in the Senate to vote no to ever stop a tax from expanding. And I think that you would always have that, because I think that I sincerely hope that we will always remain a culture in this state that supports our religious institutions, churches. I went to Catholic school down south, but I know that might not be as popular up north, but I think that my school would enjoy keeping its property tax exemption just as Parkview is going to enjoy it in Bossier.
So, James, is it correct that not passing Amendment 2 would end up resulting in about a $200 million potential tax increase? Am I understanding that correctly? I saw some commentary about that.
No. There wouldn't really be a tax increase if we didn't pass Amendment 2. But I will say, if we don't pass Amendment 2, you're going to see fewer opportunities for tax relief. One, that government growth limit is not going to be put into place. So there's going to be little restricting the legislature from continuing unfettered government spending that prevents future tax relief. Two, another critical piece that we haven't even talked about yet of Amendment 2 is for our senior citizens. If we pass Amendment 2, they'll enjoy a doubled standard deduction, which Mississippi is a state that has really led the way in trying to recruit senior citizens there with more tax-free income. If we pass this, a single senior citizen in Louisiana will have the first $37,000 of their income tax-free. If you're a married couple, that's $74,000. So all of our low and middle income seniors will not have an income tax anymore if Amendment 2 passes. And that's, I think, 66% of senior citizens in Louisiana will have zero income tax. And I think that's just a huge thing for keeping our seniors here and for trying to get them to come back to the state and hopefully be with their kids and grandkids. On the business side, I know y'all are small business owners. The inventory tax is a very onerous tax on businesses. The credit for the inventory tax that businesses received did go away. The only way businesses can see any relief and give local governments the option to get rid of a tax is to pass Amendment 2 and allow businesses to work with the locals to alleviate that tax burden. And so no, I wouldn't say that not passing it means that there will be a tax increase, but I would say that a vote no is a vote against future tax relief and tax relief for seniors right now and businesses.
Well, everybody likes to hear that. Rex, you got another question? I was seeing you ready.
No, not really. I mean, it just seems to me, and I heard Governor Landry, really propping up in one of his videos, this especially Amendment 2. It just seems like it's one of those things that it seems like it's too good to be true, and usually when that's the case, it probably is. So it seems to me like it's being touted as a Swiss Army knife of amendments. Well, why didn't we just do a constitutional convention and rewrite the whole thing anyway? Or does this do that? Is this part of it? I mean, what's the deal?
The legislature did not vote for a constitutional convention. The governor pushed very, very hard for that, and that was something that I think was the plan at this point last year. But I think that one thing you can say about Governor Landry is he is the most committed and energetic person I've ever seen to fixing the problems the state faces. And so if you tell him that you can't do it one way, I mean, that's really where this started, is when we thought there was going to be a constitutional convention. We were like, the tax and finance section is going to be it's the largest part of the Constitution. It's going to be the source of the most thing. That was going to be an up or down vote similar to this for all the changes, right? And so we started looking at what are the things that need to change. And I know when people say it's a Swiss Army knife, it sounds too good to be true. I think I know sometimes things do, and there's always a hidden thing behind it. I'll tell you, in all the quote unquote back rooms, we every few weeks after we would have a meeting just discussing kind of like what the direction we would go in, there was a public meeting with the legislature where the public was invited to come give comments, where they were updated on what our plans were. This was a very open, transparent process. I think at the Department of Revenue alone, not even counting what the governor's office did, what Governor Landry and his staff did, we took over 300 meetings last year with concerned groups, individual citizens from every end of the political spectrum. We met with especially those groups that put the foundation for this together. This when we say it's a Swiss Army knife, I really like that term. When you say it's too good to be true, it's because I think people should understand it's truly well thought out. We worked with all of the good government groups, the Public Affairs Research Council of Louisiana, Committee of 100, the Council for a Better of Louisiana, conservative groups like the Pelican Institute, Americans for Prosperity, Americans for Tax Reform, the chief advocate for getting rid of the income tax in states across the country, the Tax Foundation, just countless groups that just know good policy and had studied this for decades and had recommendations and had told the legislature for years how to fix it. But there's never been a leader with the political courage that Governor Landry, I think, has to go out and say, no, it's not impossible to get all of that done at once. And I hate to say it, but I mean, we're putting this before the voters and we're hoping they support it. I see in some of the comments, I see Jerry saying something about, will the local authorities go wild on this? There's no authority for them to go wild unless the legislature grants it. And y'all elect y'all's legislatures, and I think y'all, this group is part of it, hold their feet to the fire. And so you can the local governments will only have the ability to go tax, the assessors only have the ability to go tax if 2/3 of the legislature, both houses, and the governor agree. And so while I would never say never, I would say that I think it's highly unlikely, and I think it's going to take continued advocacy and engagement, and I don't think it ever will if as long as people stay engaged. And I think everybody's been very clear that's a priority. Everybody knows that that's not something to touch.
Yeah, and like you were saying, talking about the Constitutional Convention, as I appreciate it, this is just a first step, really, in a larger effort to refine the whole state in the way that we conduct our government, we do our business. Obviously, taxes is a big deal, regardless of where you live or where you do business. And Governor Landry is like you said, courageously trying to change. And I would just simply say that we've been doing the same thing for decades, and we keep falling behind. Anyone that says, oh, this is horrible, what is the alternative? Continuing to do the same thing again? That seems to me what the people who are opposed to this are advocating for. Am I on the mark there or what?
Duke, you summed it up better than I can. I get too attached to it because I'm so attached to all the details, which I'm happy to answer all the questions in the world about. But you said it best. It's a vote no is a vote for the status quo. If you think the status quo is good in Louisiana, vote no. If you think it's time to do something different, and if you like everything Governor Landry's done so far, this is a chance to continue the wins that we've seen in the last year in this state. And just to go back to the previous point, I'm scrolling through the comments. Jeff, really appreciate all the work that you've done trying to dispel some of the misinformation on this. But I see your note about the fiscal note. You are correct. The fiscal note on this bill was an increase of $200 million. The fiscal notes estimate the increase to the general fund. So because of some of the fund changes that we're making, including with the teacher pay raise and some of the other fund changes, they anticipate more tax dollars going into the general fund, but not more tax dollars being collected because of where so many of the tax dollars are currently dedicated. So to boil that down very simply for everybody else here, that $200 million represents opportunities for government efficiencies, for cutting government spending, and for tax cuts, because that's money that we're currently paying in taxes that is not going to a general fund expense right now, that's going into a dedicated fund. And that's what we're trying to do here, is clean up the dedications and get to a place where we can really take a look at every dollar the state spends, so that ultimately we can run a more efficient government and hopefully continue down the path. Already under 1 year of Governor Landry, we have the second lowest income tax in the country of states that charge one. And very soon we could be on a path to being the lowest and being the next state to get rid of it.
All right.
Isn't it true that the Tax Foundation said that if we pass this, we would automatically improve our position to from in the 40s up into the low 20s?
Yep. Right now we're number 41. We would jump up to 24 or 26. But either way, how many things does Louisiana rank number 24, 25 in? We're used to ranking in the bottom 10. And these are the best tax experts in the country. They look at every single state. And I'll tell you, If you look at the states in their top 10, they're the states that people are moving to, not leaving. The states in their bottom 10, New York, California, Illinois, Louisiana. What do we have in common? We're the only 4 states that are losing population. States in the top 10, Tennessee, Florida, Utah, North Carolina, Texas, the fastest growing states in the country, are also in the top 10 of the tax foundation. The states losing population are in the bottom 10. I don't think you can say that there's not a direct correlation between good tax policy and people being attracted to your state in a growing economy that brings in a good workforce and that brings in jobs.
So the bulk of Amendment 2, and it's, I guess, the HB 7 bill or whatever act is like 120 pages or whatever it is. But correct me if I'm wrong, and so that everybody watching knows, the bulk of Amendment 2 is, and I'm looking at the PAR guide here, is rewriting large portions of the Constitution dealing with revenue collection, the state budget process, and then savings and taxation rules. Is that pretty much correct?
Yeah, and I'll say the ballot language, I'll read it for everybody. It's short for that many pages, but I'll say it covers all of the high points of the real changes because all of the other things that are contained in it are maintained in law. They're not actually changed substantively. There's no actual effect of voting yes or no for all the other changes. The only thing is it moves from the Constitution to statute with a higher threshold to change. And so the bulk of Amendment 2 really is, I mean, not Amendment 2, House Bill 7, which created Amendment 2. If you look at it, it's mostly deletions. Every single one of those deletions, if it's not rewritten with different language in that bill, is recreated in law in House Bills 11 and 12. So when you see deletions, it does not mean we're getting rid of something or something is changing. It just means it's moving from Constitution to statute, which is where it belongs. Because again, the US Constitution does not tell you what crimes are in it. It tells you what your rights are. And we're trying to get to a place where our state constitution is more mirroring what are your rights and then what everything else is. Well, the details we leave to our elected representatives.
That's
Okay.
really good. I like the way you said that.
Yeah. All right. So I think we beat that dead horse a little bit. Shall we move to the other amendments, or Duke, you got another
Yeah, well,
point or question?
I'm voting for Amendment 2. I'm sold. I'm
Well,
voting for Amendment 2. It's done. He
Well, I
sold me.
appreciate
and let me say this. I was a no on all 4 of them, just on general principle. I think we need to rewrite the whole Constitution myself. But I'm being persuaded there to maybe go ahead and vote yes on Amendment 2. So maybe we can convince me to vote yes on the rest of these amendments.
Well, no,
Yeah,
I
what do you?
appreciate that. And look, I get, I'm also a small L libertarian. I generally have a distrust of the government, and I also hate taxes. But this gives less power to the government. It puts things into the Constitution where they should be. It limits the power of government on taxation and a lot of other issues. It also just saves us money by paying down probably the biggest debt payment in history.
All right. Let
Jerry,
me
to your
stop.
question, no
Yeah.
effect on state sales tax.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so let's run through these other amendments briefly, real quick, and just give us the 1,000-foot view from your opinion, and whether you think these are good or bad. And I think they're pretty simple compared to Amendment 2, but you can handle it. I have faith.
Yeah, no, so overall, these are all much, much simpler than Amendment 2. So we'll start with number 1. I just want to make sure that I'm looking at the titles on each of these. So Amendment 1 deals with attorney discipline. Yes, so the Supreme Court's jurisdiction for disciplining out-of-state attorneys and to create specialty courts. So right now, and to go back to my previous point on Amendment 2, we have too many very nitty-gritty details in the Constitution that lead to stupid debates about whether the Constitution grants authority to do this or not. It's very restrictive. So right now, the current Constitution limits the Supreme Court's ability to discipline attorneys. The Supreme Court has the ultimate right to discipline attorneys in Louisiana. That their power is limited to disciplining members of the bar. that has led to questions over whether or not that applies to attorneys that are from out of state and that are not members of the Louisiana State Bar. This recently became a problem as part of our insurance crisis when a lot of lawsuits were filed at the very last minute, thousands actually, from a law firm based in Houston. The Supreme Court has no ability to go penalize those lawyers. If those lawyers were based in Lake Charles, the Supreme Court could go investigate that claim and discipline those lawyers. So it's a very technical fix to clarify that it applies to all attorneys who practice in the state of Louisiana, even if they're not members of the Louisiana State Bar.
All right, so maybe
The
a yes
second
on
one-
that one too.
I would think generally that anybody that sees discipline in attorneys would love that one, regardless. All they got to see is discipline for attorneys, and they would automatically vote for that.
I should have just
And right now, the damn
instantly
shame is,
voted for
if
it.
you're a Louisiana-based attorney, they can discipline you. But if you're not a member of the Louisiana State Bar, there have been arguments that that the Supreme Court cannot do anything with attorneys who are not members of the Louisiana State Bar. So we need to just clarify within the Constitution. But again, this is one of those things that if it was in statute, the legislature could have just passed the thing and never asked y'all to vote on it, because it really is technical in nature. Because the second part of that amendment pertains to the creation of specialty courts. So right now we have, I think, around 60, 70 specialty courts across the state. The Constitution limits the legislature's ability to create those specialty courts to parish lines or existing judicial jurisdiction districts. So this creates a problem because either you have to create a specialty court. So specialty courts, just very overview, take cases out of your main judicial district courts or your main district courts where caseload is high, and that's where most of your criminal cases are going. You want those criminal cases moving through the system faster. Creation of specialty courts is where you can get a lot of your low-level offenses out of the way. But right now, say you have a parish, especially it's a problem in North Louisiana, that wants to create a specialty court to get rid of, just to clear up the burden. Well, they might not have the funding and resources for it. This says that the legislature can let those specialty courts be created across parish lines. So say Grant Parish, Rapides, and LaSalle want to create a specialty court for drug, DWI, and whatever lower level offenses. Right now, they can't unless that aligns with existing judicial district boundaries. It gives the legislature more flexibility to create those in a way that makes sense for what funding exists, what the local needs are, what the needs are across the state or across different regions. Because right now, those can only be created by the parish or by a district. And so it's just, again, technical fix that the legislature has the ability to create these courts right now, but if they're restricted to parishes or judicial districts, this would say they can create these courts and they can decide the boundaries of these courts.
Well said on Amendment 1. Well, Amendment 3, this one may be a little personal for folks. Trying juveniles as adults. I don't know. I almost feel like this one might be just kind of, some people may feel one way, people may feel another way, maybe a little personal there. I mean, I don't know. What's the take? I guess the Baton Rouge folks.
So again, back to a common theme in Rex, to your point about I want to rewrite the whole Constitution. I know it's not the whole Constitution, but this is a lot of the changes that we want to make in the Constitution from the theme on Amendment 1 of just taking stuff out and making it one technical fixes and giving us more flexibility. But on Amendment 3, Duke, I know you said it's controversial charging juveniles as adults. There's already, I believe, 16 crimes where juveniles can be charged as adults under current Louisiana law. The problem is those in the state constitution. I don't know if there's ever a state constitution that lists specific crimes for which the penalty can be changed for. And so basically the effect of that is if you're somebody that believes that a 16 or 17-year-old that carjacks somebody in New Orleans or in Shreveport should be able to be charged as an adult, right now, if we want to change that, we would have to pass through 2/3 of the legislature and through the voters an amendment to do that. If we decide another crime is also worthy of being charged as adults, we need to go through that same process. If, on the flip side of that, we decide, hey, maybe it's a little bit too much to charge this as an adult, we have to go back to the voters and go through that whole process again for every single time. But we've run into this. I think the real intent behind this is we've run into this issue where in New Orleans, unless the juvenile kills the person that they're carjacking, they're not charged as an adult. And there was a case a few years ago, horrible case down in New Orleans, where I think everybody knows about Linda Frickey, who was killed and who was carjacked and killed in the process by 15 and 16-year-olds. If they had not killed her, if they had just kicked her out of the car and not drug her for a mile and she lived, even if she didn't die after she was drugged by that car, she would have been charged. Those juveniles would have not been able to be charged as adults, because the only way they're charged as adults is if it's carjacking with a weapon or if it becomes murder.
Wow. Okay.
And so this is just to give the legislature more ability to say, these are the crimes we want to be able to charge juveniles as adults. Because right now, if there's something that they realize is a gap in the criminal code where they can't charge a juvenile as an adult, and a crime happens in January, just for the very real world of why this needs to be in statute, not the Constitution. Crime happens in January, legislature meets in April. They put a constitutional amendment on the ballot for November. Well, it's not until the next year that the law is changed. Now, the legislature can meet in April, say this should be a crime that juveniles can be charged as adults, and by July 1st, the law is changed.
I think a lot of people just assumed that was already the case, and I think people would be surprised to learn that.
Yep. No, the crimes in which juveniles can be charged as adults are currently enumerated in the state constitution. And so this would, again, to the point of cleaning up and putting things in statute that shouldn't be in the Constitution, this takes them all out, maintains the entire current list, and allows the legislature, again, with a 2/3 vote, to add to the list or subtract from it. But I don't think that is the actual intent.
No, you're well on your way to convincing me, James.
Well, I appreciate it. I try my best sometimes.
All right, so Amendment 4, the last, use earliest election dates for filling judicial vacancies. What do we have going on here?
How do y'all feel about closed primaries?
Oh, I'm all in on closed primaries. I wish we'd have had it a long time ago. Well, we did have it a long time ago. Then we changed, and then we came back.
Yep. So the legislature last year started the process again under Governor Landry's leadership. The very first special session that he called, passed legislation to create closed primaries for several offices in Louisiana, including the Supreme Court. I think hopefully all of us can agree that that's a very needed change, and hopefully we can keep adding to that list down the line. The current Constitution mandates the timeline for when Supreme Court vacancies can be filled. Under open primaries, it takes 2 elections to fill a Supreme Court vacancy, and the vacancy is required to be filled within 12 months. Under closed primaries, it would take 3 elections to fill the Supreme Court vacancy. So Amendment number 4, so under the current Constitution, it is impossible to fill a Supreme Court vacancy in 12. Let me backtrack. With closed primaries and having to have 3 elections, it's impossible to turn those around under the legal timeline within 12 months. So we need to change the Constitution and change the timeline in which Supreme Court elections are held to be able to hold those under closed primaries. Again, a technical change. I know the wording on some of these things, people always assume something nefarious is happening. This is literally, we passed the closed primaries, Governor Landry signed it, and then somebody realized, well, wait, under this 12-month timeline, the other consequence of it could be that within that 12-month timeline, you end up having to have basically a special primary election 2 weeks before another election, and you could just end up just having voters in the same judicial district go to the polls multiple times, and that's just costly to taxpayers, and I think the voters get tired of voting too much. So it's, again, just another technical change that either we have to change the way closed primaries are conducted for the Supreme Court, which I think opens up a dangerous window into let's talk about, as Duke said, we had closed primaries, then we didn't, now we do again. we don't want to not have them again, and we want to keep pushing towards them. So if we don't do this, we'd probably have to get rid of them for Supreme Court elections, or make it take longer for the voters to get to fill one of those seats, and give the Supreme Court the power to fill them for a longer time. And so this just is what everybody settled on as the best technical fix to conduct those elections under a closed primary, while giving the voters the quickest voice to fill a Supreme Court vacancy. It's going to be a very rare instance, and that's one of the things that's noted in the PAR guide that many people are reading, is there's no recent time where this would have happened that really would have affected it that much. But the time that it does come, you don't want to be stuck in a situation where the Constitution prevents the voters from having a say, or the Constitution gets closed primaries overturned because it conflicts with the Constitution.
Fair enough. Let me
Well
double
said.
check and see if we got any more questions here. Miss Jerry has another question. Let's see. Let me put it up on the screen. She says, a specialty court for attorneys, is that a possibility? Do you have any
The
feedback on
way I
that?
read the language, I think anything would be a possibility with a 2/3 vote of the legislature.
Okay.
And so if that's something that they decide there's a need for, I mean, that I think you could really do anything, and I think there's nothing nefarious about that. I think it's something that is good for our judicial system. If people are seeing more swift and fast justice, if people are getting their civil claims fulfilled quicker, if we're trying to divert people on low-level offenses into rehabilitation programs, I think there's a lot of flexibility and openness there that we can do really whatever the legislature deems appropriate and whatever the voters bring to them.
Well, I think, I mean, man, I got to tell you, you've kind of cleared up a lot of questions that I had. But I will tell you now, I want you to put a different hat on, and I want to throw you a curveball here because I haven't thrown you one.
Okay.
But I know you're a big boy and you can handle it. I've known you long enough to know you can handle it. But okay, so I want you to put your oil and gas hat on, and
Yep.
because this one is kind of growing up here, and I'm not going to press you hard, but um, the carbon capture stuff. Okay, a lot of people are just now starting to understand all of this, and I as I appreciate, there's dialogue going on that's talking about creating unitization to the scale of 40,000 acres. Is that accurate? You know, and for those of you watching the show, what I'm talking about is like when you drill an oil and gas well, the units are like, what is it, 640 acres? That's a section. But when we're talking about the carbon capture stuff, they're talking about putting the carbon, sequestering it in the ground, and making those areas to the tune of 40,000 acres. Am I talking correctly or not? Is that right?
I mean, I've seen lots of estimates for what it could or could not be. I think it's really early to speculate on like what any amount would be, but obviously, I mean, it's going to depend on on what local landowners and everybody in the area agrees upon. I really wouldn't be comfortable speculating on what any numbers could look like for that.
Gotcha. Okay,
Yeah,
so it's still
I
too
think there's
early.
a
So that
lot of process to go there. Yeah.
okay. So that was something that I've been hearing, and that kind of
And
was.
especially for
I
like the
gotta.
boat for Bossier, Northwest Louisiana, I'll just be honest with you. Like for what I can say, I haven't heard of much up there. I think it's a little bit more concentrated south of y'all. At least everything
Yeah.
that I know of is more concentrated to the south.
Well, kind of the concern that's growing up here is because the port, the Caddo Bossier port up here is one of the places putting in the carbon sequestration facility or whatever, and then they're supposed to pipe it, I think, south of us to some parish south. I mean, I think even further south than DeSoto. I don't know which parish, but the pros and cons on this deal is really starting to get under people's skin. I know we didn't talk about this, but and
Yeah.
I'm not trying to catch you off
I
guard, but
mean, from the and so as Joel said, I've talked a lot about Amendment 2. I've only been in this world for a month now. From what I do know, I think the facility in Bossier, or at the Bossier Caddo Port, would be taking it from the air and piping it underground, And yeah, that would be just one south gel. The only impact there would just be a tower that sucks carbon out the air. So
Yeah. Well, I just don't want them to just suck too much and just start going north to Plain Dealing, and then I can't crawfish anymore or whatever, you know.
no, I think we'll be good. Hey, look, I don't know if you
Yeah.
saw all the Democrats are getting rid of their electric vehicles and buying gas guzzlers. We'll have plenty of carbon in the air for decades to come. I never thought I'd see the day.
Yeah.
They're
Tell me
they're
about
all
it.
on the
Tell me about it.
anti-Elon bandwagon now.
And they all realize there's no other good-looking electric vehicle, so they're buying Tahoes. I love it. Bare
Oh
metal,
God.
huh?
Awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, James, we appreciate it so much, and I hope that everybody found everything enlightening. And I think I'm going to be leaning to vote yes on everything, especially two. I'm all in on two, and I think I'm going to vote yes on the rest of them as well. Rex, where are you at?
I think I've pretty much changed my mind. I haven't early voted yet, going to this week, but I'm going to read up a little
Rex,
bit more. But
Duke has my number. Call me if you got any more
yeah,
questions.
exactly. All right. Yeah.
But look, I have no skin in the game anymore. I have no reason to come on and BS y'all. Like that's just there's enough lies on the internet out there. I'll tell you all the truth. I'm voting yes. Those are the reasons I am. I don't see the reasons to vote no. I have, and they're all lies. So
Yeah. Well, good feedback, and we appreciate you going through there and giving us a pretty thorough analysis and answering a few questions too.
awesome. No problem. Anytime. Appreciate y'all.
Thanks, brother.
Awesome. Y'all take care.
All right, you too.
All right, so yeah, I mean, did that answer your question? And I stepped on you one time. I apologize. I mean, I didn't intentionally change the subject, but I wanted to get to that one point, and I kind of
Oh
stepped on
no,
you a
that
little
was no, that was fine because I had actually cheated a little bit too. I had some notes before the show that I didn't exactly put in the notes because they were kind of long-winded, but he did address all of that, and it was stuff I had seen on the internet. And I want to address something in the comments too. So I want to point out that we posted on March the 12th the PAR guide, the summaries for the PAR guide, as well as links to the full thing. We also posted the counterpoints from LA CAG on there as well. So we have posted, neutral, nonpartisan points on both sides of the pros and cons, as well as the LA CAG points, which are against all four of the amendments. So if you want to go see that, go back to our March the 12th post, and you can review those if you haven't already mail voted or early voted.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we did. I mean, and Chris Alexander, I mean, he's been on our show before, great guy, and I agree with him, I mean, almost always. And I mean, look, it's hard to get things through the legislature, and we've got to start changing things. We can't just leave the status quo in place. And I think
Right.
this is one of those cases where we're going to have to throw something out there, see if it sticks, and if it sticks, great. We'll be doing better. If it doesn't stick, and we'll have to come back to the table and try something else. But just not changing and doing the same thing, nah, I'm not on board with that.
No, I agree 100%. I mean, it's that, doing the same thing over and over, yet expecting different results. That absolutely is not flying with our state. We don't seem to be improving on very much, except improving on getting worse in some cases, at least fiscally. So, all right, what shall we talk about now?
I don't know. I'm seeing in the notes. I mean, you remember we have notes.
Oh,
Wait a minute.
yes.
We need to talk about carbon capture. It has several problems the community needs to understand. Danny, I agree because
We agree. Yeah, we both agree on that.
yeah, no doubt. I mean, look, that carbon capture stuff scares me. I got to tell you, it does. And I know Danny's a oil field guy, and and I've been around the oil field just a little bit as well too. And I got to tell you, there's some corrosive stuff out there in that oil field, and the people. I'm not I'm not convinced that the people making the decisions on all this carbon capture stuff, I'm not convinced they're making sound decisions, and I think
I'm
there's a lot
convinced
of
they're.
risk here.
Well, I'm convinced there's a lot of money there, and that's why they're making those decisions. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And I mean, look, I understand the chemistry and everything behind it and all that, but the amount of carbon that they're going to be able to take out of the atmosphere and sequester by injecting it into the earth, that's a drop of sand in the proverbial 5-gallon bucket or less. But
Yeah,
somebody's going to be making lots of tax dollars off of it, which means
well, and
our tax dollars.
yeah, well, the consequence of these decisions, I mean, they're forever. I mean, it's like nuclear. I mean, it's forever. These ain't small decisions, and they damn sure shouldn't be decisions being made like people like me or you,
Right.
or people. I mean, I don't know. I just these are big decisions, and it's scaring me with the people that are maybe in the positions making these decisions. It shouldn't be legislators. It really shouldn't.
I agree it should not, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, so yeah, Danny McCormick, maybe we'll have you on here in the next couple of weeks and let's talk about that carbon capture thing.
Yeah, or maybe we'll do I don't know, maybe we need to set something up like a debate on the carbon capture. Let's get anyway, that's not let's what are we going we're going to dual office holding. I see that in the notes. Where are we going with dual office holdings? That sounds familiar to me.
Well, guess who we might be talking? He's like the dadgum. Well, it's either like playing whack-a-mole or he's like needs to be the
Well,
cockroach of the week that we're trying to smash and we just can't seem to smash him.
he's on TV every day. I see him every day. He's on TV.
Oh, he loves Vince. He's supporting Vince. And we've already told y'all why. It has to do with the calendar and this whole
Oh, wait a
2-year
minute.
thing.
Hold up.
Uh-oh.
Stop the presses. I've got to make a correction.
Uh-oh. Okay.
I think, were wrong. That's not correct.
What's not correct?
About our theory, our hypothesis, and the 2-year mark of his being off the board and then being able to get back on, because as I appreciated in Bossier City, now it still could be something to it, but the theory I think is wrong, because here's what I learned.
Okay.
What I learned was that Bossier City actually has built in somewhere, maybe in an ordinance, maybe something, that in an election year that the council can't appoint people to positions or make any big expenditures or something or another, like after a certain point in March or maybe April the 1st, till the next group is sworn in. They can't take any actions.
Well, but wait a minute. If it's an election year, it's 2025. All he's got to do is wait 6 months.
Yeah, but the thing, it wouldn't be this council, it would be the next council that would do something.
Right, but he's banking on the fact that Vince and Darby, two of the good old boy leftovers, Vince being a relatively newbie to the good old boys, but still he's the last vestige, kind of like, well, pardon the phrase, ladies, like tits on a boar hog, last vestige of the good old boys. He's banking on that fact of them getting elected so he can weasel his way in there. I got news for him. I hope that the newly elected city council persons will put a stop to that, put a halt to it, but we will see. Look, he's angling for something. He's not doing this out of the goodness of his heart. He's not walking all these neighborhoods just because he likes Vince that much. That's a bunch of crap.
I don't know. He may be. I mean, but I don't know. I got to tell you, I'm wondering. I don't know. I thought I had it figured out, and I think I'm wrong. I think I was wrong. But
well, we have been wrong once or twice, maybe. But I will say this. So let me switch screens here. Hold a second. Let me do some button clicking here. Oh, wow. They changed up the screen in the new software a little bit. That's cool. Just to so everybody knows what we're talking about, I've got a cut here. And this is the letter from Ron Machota himself, the man in the suit, the ace attorney for Robert Berry. This was about Robert Berry not being reappointed by the Bossier Parish Police Jury. This is when they appointed Rodney Madden to take Robert Berry's place as the appointee. But you see, I have highlighted in yellow there, Mr. Berry's term as commissioner on the district's board expired on Monday, July 31st, 2023 at 11:59 p.m. I think we reported on that, or you did, last show or show before last. Anyway, Statute 41:1121A2 says no former member of a board or commission shall, for a period of 2 years following termination of his public service on such board or commission, contract with, be employed in any capacity by, or be appointed to any position by that board or commission. It is Mr. Machota's opinion that this statute legally prohibits Mr. Berry. And I got to say, the irony in that is they didn't think the dual office holding statutes legally prevented him from dual office holding, but that's a whole other can of worms we're going to get to. It prohibits Mr. Berry from continuing to be employed as executive director or in any other capacity for the district following the expiration of Mr. Berry's term as commissioner. So that's what you're referring to. It will be 2 years this July that he could be reappointed to some board, and I would argue, and I thought you would argue too until tonight, that may be what he's saying. I don't know. Maybe it's just out of the goodness of his heart he wants to see Vince be city councilman again. Maybe that is it.
Yeah, maybe it is. But, well, I mean, look, I don't mind admitting when I'm wrong, but I got to tell you, that shot my theory. And I thought that was maybe it as to why he was so on board, fighting for Vince. But, I don't know. Maybe it's because he lives in the city.
Oh, maybe so. He does live in the city limits, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. So you can add that one to the column for Vince of a city resident advocating for him.
Well, and that leads to the next point in the notes there. This whole defense of Vince Maggio, that he's a good man and he's done so much for the community. I mean, look, he is a nice guy. Just a few brief times I've met him, been a super nice guy. And I'm sure he has done a lot for his area through his store and, being a longtime businessman. But again, I go back to his using the fact that he had to privately pay or whatever for some trash cans rather than being able, as a sitting city councilman, to get the city to do their job, whatever that ordeal was. That's just stupid. And it shows how weak he truly is as a city councilman, that he's just a follower, not a leader. And that's my whole point. And I'll say this, that sounds eerily familiar to the same things that were being said by the Robert Berry advocates throughout his whole hot water ordeal out there at the Cypress District. Oh, that's what everybody would say that Robert had done favors for. Oh, he's such a good guy and he's such a good man. But you had a whole other swath of people that said the exact opposite of him, and that basically he was Satan incarnate. Am I spelling that out pretty clearly, Mr. Lowry? Uh-oh. I lost your audio. You mute yourself. There you go.
I had to mute myself because I had Bo. He was ready to chew somebody's arm off, and I didn't want to torture everybody with it. But yeah, no, I think you're on the right track. I mean, because it was back then. I remember it clearly. Everybody was talking about, how great he was. And again, we were horrible people and liars. I mean, I showed you the video of him on the park backhoe on his private property using taxpayer dollar equipment on his private property, but yet we're the liars and horrible people. It was the same old thing. And now, here we are again talking about facts and backing it up with proof, and we're the liars and the trash and boys and all this other crap. I mean, here we go again. It's like being on the roller coaster and riding it twice.
Well, hold on. Now we gotta slow down a little bit, because I got a phone call earlier from this guy named Morgan. and Morgan wanted to do another deep dive and spout some facts. So, if you would like, Mr. Lowry and folks y'all watching, I've got about a 3-minute video, and it's another deep dive with this guy named Morgan talking about Robert Berry. And there are some facts in there that I think a lot of people would like to hear, and some opinions. And the reason we're talking about Robert Berry is because Vince has him as the poster child for his entire campaign. So, what say you, Mr. Lowry? Shall we listen to another deep dive?
By all means, let's hear it.
Here we go.
The conflict of interest. Robert Berry was both a board member and the executive director of the Cypress Black Bayou Recreation and Water Conservation District. In other words, he was his own boss. Now, Louisiana has strict laws against dual office holding. Under Law S 4264, a person cannot hold two public positions if one role has the power to appoint or remove the other. And here's where Berry got into trouble. As a board member, he had the power to hire and fire the executive director, which was him. Even though Berry claimed he abstained from decisions about his own job, Louisiana law is pretty clear. Just having the power to remove yourself is enough to violate the rules. Seems pretty straightforward, right? Well, not so fast. Legal maneuvering and delays. When the district attorney, DA, of the 26th Judicial District challenged Berry's dual roles in court, Berry fought back. He won at the trial court level, where a judge wrongly ruled that his roles weren't a conflict. The Louisiana Second Circuit Court of Appeal upheld that ruling, blocking an attempt by the Attorney General, AG, to intervene in the case. But here's where things get shady. The Cypress District itself used taxpayer-funded attorneys to defend Berry. That's right, a government agency used public money to protect an official accused of violating ethics laws. The Louisiana Supreme Court steps in. The Louisiana Supreme Court wasn't having it. They reviewed the case, reversed the lower court's rulings, and ruled that Berry did violate the dual office holding law. The court made it clear. It doesn't matter if Berry abstained from board votes. Just having the power to fire himself created a conflict. So what does this mean for the bigger picture? Public trust and government accountability. This case isn't just about one guy holding two jobs. It's about government accountability and whether public officials should be allowed to use public resources to defend themselves when they break the rules. Here's the big takeaway. Robert Berry violated Louisiana's dual office holding law. The Cypress District used public money to defend him, an ethically questionable move at best. The Louisiana Supreme Court got it right and sent a message that conflicts of interest won't be ignored. This case is a reminder of why government transparency and ethics matter. If we don't hold officials accountable, who will? That's it for today's deep dive with Morgan. If you like this episode, subscribe, share, and stay informed. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, power unchecked is power abused.
Kind of like that last quote right there. Power unchecked is power abused. What do you think about that, Mr. Lowry?
I am steady typing. I like it though. I mean, that Morgan is improving.
Yes, he's doing a little bit better. And look, he's rolled off the facts right there. Those are indisputable facts. So again, you know, we get on our show and get on the show every Tuesday night and get on our soapbox, and people accuse us of lying and stirring the pot. Now look, there is no doubt we stir the pot. We intend every Tuesday night. Let me be clear if you're just tuning in. Every Tuesday night, we intend to stir the pot. If you don't like to see said pot stirred politically, don't tune in, scroll on by. But we welcome you if you want to see the pot stirred and what bubbles up from underneath, and you know, maybe educates you a little bit and makes you think a little bit deeper about politics around here.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, Well, that goes back to the start of this show. The start of this show was to talk about all of the things that nobody will talk about publicly, or they'll talk about it privately, but they won't talk about it publicly. And we're broaching all of those subjects. We're saying what nobody else will say. And if that makes us bad people, then you know what? Okay, we're bad people, but we're not going to
Yeah.
stop.
But look, I got to say, and a lot of our initial shows, I spent a lot of time talking about the Cypress District, and you did as well. And a lot of times, it was like, why are we talking about the Cypress District so much? Well, the Cypress District was kind of the canary in the coal mine for the bigger picture around here. I don't know if you folks noticed, but listening to that deep dive, it sounded eerily familiar, to use that term again, to what's going on with the city council. Unchecked power, using lawfare against the people to try to stay in office and hold on to your last little reins of power. It's the same, almost the same MO.
Yeah, not wanting to let go, wanting to continue to control. And the interesting thing is, as I see in the notes, like you have birds of a feather flock together, you know, it's interesting how the same people that fight losing the power are all interconnected. They're all really tight. And why is that?
Yeah, why is that? Let me go ahead and share one screen deal out here. Hold on just a second. So I've got several cuts listed in the notes. I'm not going to go through every one of those because a lot of it Morgan just talked about in that deep dive, but I will post all of these after the show or in the morning. But this one in particular, I want you to see. This is from the court documents. Okay, this is not Rex making up this. This isn't Rex's numbers. These are from the actual court documents. But look at those numbers there. He started out at $115,266 in yearly salary in 2017. And by 2020, he was up to $157,700. And all the while, keep in mind that the amount of money that the Cypress District was spending on lawfare and lawyer fees from the Caddo Parish attorneys was increasing drastically as well. But, this spells out the main deal right here. And this is why I say I don't think Robert Berry is doing this just out of the goodness of his heart. I really don't. I think he's doing it and angling to get back to some sort of appointed bureaucratic position. I could be wrong.
Well, yeah, maybe so, maybe so. Well, speaking of, uh, government and the haves and the have-nots, and wasn't there some kind of Supreme Court case that was going on today, and where I think that the haves were trying to put their finger on some have-nots, and as it would turn out, the have-nots, or so they thought, weren't exactly have-nots.
Yes, there was. As a matter of fact, I'm putting it up on the screen right here. There was a case down at the Louisiana Supreme Court, and we've talked about this before. James McCormick, who is or was, he may be retired now, dentist, and his wife, Kim McCormick, versus, oh, looky there, that familiar name, Joe Butch Ford Jr., William Bill Altimus, Jeremy Darby, and Carlotta Askew Brown, basically the McCormicks versus the police jury. And they had oral arguments today down at the Supreme Court. Now, we don't have a recording of that right now, but I did listen to about 15 or 20 minutes of it while I was driving through town. Now, full disclosure, I didn't listen to all of it, but the time that I did listen to it, the police jury's attorney, which was not Patrick Jackson down there representing them, but he was pretty much getting his hat handed to him. The one quote, I'm paraphrasing, so this is not a direct quote, but the one quote was basically, y'all were taking, the police jury, referring to the police jury, was taking their land. And there were some other quotes in there. So again, we'll see how this Supreme Court decision plays out. But it was kind of interesting, the little bit that I heard.
that's a pretty strong statement. The police jury was taking your land. So, you know, I think we in some show at one time or another we were talking about what is the interest in the police jury having all of these roads or what have you, you know, but if you're demanding people put roads and you turn the rights over to that road on your private property, then that in essence is taking your land by kind of sort of by definition.
Yes, yes, it is. And I would point out that that's in your favorite police juror's district as well. That is under the purview of the little princess. We have not mentioned her name in a while. All right.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. But we'll have more on that definitely in the police jury versus the McCormicks, because there is going to be some humdingers come out of that before this is said and done. I hope that the McCormicks prevail in that case, and I look forward to hearing the rest of that story.
Yeah,
So,
it'll be interesting to see how it turns out and see what the Supreme Court says. Now, I will say this as well from the technical side. They have posted on their page where the live feed is that they mentioned being able to access the on-demand video. On-demand would be after the fact video. I didn't see that listed anywhere on the page, so I don't know whether they actually provide that or not. But I did send an email off to the contact with the Supreme Court to see if they do post that. If they do, we'll make sure and share it out because it was pretty interesting.
Okay. I see something brewing, but we'll keep moving along. We might can bring order to chaos here, but
okay.
So let's move back on to Vince. And did you were you as amazed as I was about Vince now supports term limits?
Yeah, it was a shocker to me. Well, there was a time. Now, look, full disclosure, folks, we try to, provide as much truth as we can. And full disclosure, now correct me if I'm wrong. I could be wrong about this, dude. Don't I remember Vince having a Facebook post when he was campaigning the first time, I think it was, that he supported term limits? Am I crazy, or did I remember seeing that post, or Wes or somebody in the comments correct me on that? But he, of course, has done an absolute about face. He voted, I forget what it was, 10 times, 12 times against putting term limits on the ballot until he was forced to do it by, basically being threatened with malfeasance in office from the appeals court. And then all of a sudden, miraculously, lo and behold, the good old boys, and Vince being a newbie, good old boy, they had a change of heart. Well, they had to vote for term limits.
Yeah, I mean, now all of a sudden there's. Oh, wait a minute! I just realized something.
What's that?
I think you cut all my notes out.
What?
You did. You cut when you was slicing and dicing earlier. You cut out some of my good stuff. That's okay.
Yeah,
That's
but
okay.
nah. In my deal, remember I said everything
I
above
know.
door hanger.
I know. That gummit.
All that stuff was checked off.
You did say that, but hey, this is easy. I can do this. I'm gonna have to open up another screen here because
you go to last week's.
We're amateurs. We're amateurs, guys. So
hey, it is 8:33. This is the amateur hour.
No doubt it's amateur hour, but we may be fixing to bring you some high intensity stuff. I don't know. We'll see how this turns out.
Okay.
I texted you. You can start working on that. But yeah, when it started regarding Vince being on, don't go there. We'll go to cut one. We got to get this share screen thing figured out. That way I can help you.
Yeah, I'm trying to read your text and at the same time.
Anyway. That's what I'm saying. I am putting too much on you.
That's all right. Let me switch there. Let me do this. Cut one, is that correct?
Yeah, cut one.
Okay.
So when you were saying, here's where we started, that this is one of the first things, so then Vince puts out this thing saying he supports term limits. And then additionally, he puts out in this same video thing or whatever, he puts the picture of the fire truck, says Bossier City Fire Department. Well, you can't do that. The Bossier City Fire Department can't endorse. Now, Vince was endorsed by the Bossier City Fire Local 1051. He got that endorsement, but he is not endorsed by the Bossier City Fire Department. And he, to his credit, cut to the very, I think, I don't know, it may have been the same day, maybe afterwards, he corrected the record and he said, look, that was a mistake. We made a mistake.
Well,
And
okay. Yeah, he had to. I mean, aren't there actual legal repercussions for that?
Yeah, there are laws that say you can't do that.
Right.
But he did it.
But then there was a problem, though.
Well, then there was a problem, and this is where my Saturday went astray. And when I say my Saturday went astray, my Saturday went way astray. So they made another post on Saturday.
Yeah. And it might be hard to read for those of you that are especially watching on mobile, but down here in the smaller print, right here, I'm going to put the finger pointer down there. What does that say, Duke?
I think it says endorsed by the Bossier City Fire Department. So we're claiming again that a government entity, the Bossier City Fire Department, endorses him, which is
but look, this is Vince's MO. Remember when he told us that he was questioned at that town hall meeting? I think it was over at the Big Center or wherever it was. Anyway, he was questioned at that town hall meeting, and he said about voting for term limits or against it, and he said, "Oh, I just pushed the wrong button." So maybe he just pushed the wrong button again.
No, he didn't make this post. He's got campaign people doing this, right? I mean, he didn't do this.
He probably didn't, but that is his name up there. It does say Vince Maggio for Bossier City Council District 5. That is his official campaign page, correct?
It is his. He is the candidate.
Okay.
He's responsible for what goes on it. He supports term limits, and he put down there endorsed by the Bossier City Fire Department. Well, having been a fireman in Bossier City, having been the representative for the firefighters on the Bossier City Civil Service Board, I know that you can't do that. I know you can't do that. Also, additionally, being one of the Term Limits Coalition people, I also know that Vince doesn't support term limits. And as a result, me, along with everybody else, we've been called liars. We've been called, I'm going to go on out on a limb and say that he means that we're trash as well. Thinks of us as boys, in the negative connotation. So I had to respond. And when it popped up I was at my office, and when it popped up, I had to respond. I just couldn't take it anymore. So go to cut 4.
Yep. I'm going to drag them all up here. So shall I read it or shall you?
No, you're going to have to read it because I dang sure can't read it.
All right. Let me put on my specs here. Anyway, it says, this was Duke's comment when it was still listed as the Bossier City Fire Department being endorsed by. Vince, you voted 10 times against placing real term limits on the ballot. You even stated that you voted yes one time by accident because you hit the wrong button, and went on to say, quote, I am against term limits, unquote. Those are not lies, but are on video. Furthermore, you posted an image of a fire truck from Bossier City yesterday saying the Bossier City Fire Department endorses you, which is illegal, and you later stated it was a mistake. Now you're doing it again. I want to personally invite you or your designee, since I'm certain you won't debate or come on the show, on Bossier Watch Tuesday night to address the facts. I will await your reply or deletion from the page. Let me guess. I bet he replied and said he would love to come on here and explain the mistake he made twice.
Do you want to see the response? that I
Sure.
got. I got a response.
Oh,
I
did you?
did.
Oh,
Yeah, go
well,
to cut.
well,
Yeah.
I didn't even know he. Oh, hey, wait a minute. Well, you know what this tells me, Duke? We know they read the post. I mean, we know they watched the show anyway, but we know they read the post and we know they saw the invite. And yet,
Well,
we're sitting here with. I need to find my little
wait,
crickets deal.
well, here's the thing. You know how I know they saw? I mean, I screenshotted the whole thing, but then additionally, somebody liked my post. And the thing is before I got booted or banned
Mm-hmm.
from his page or blocked or whatever they do,
Right.
you know who liked my comment?
Who would that be?
Vicky Whitman.
What?
Yeah, I saw it. It was Vicky Whitman. She liked my comment.
Oh,
And
she must have accidentally pushed the button too.
then I was banned and blocked from the page. And, but, through the magic of technologies, I was able to see kind of a little bit of what transpired afterwards. And if you go to the
Hey,
next
wait a
cut,
minute. But wait a minute. I think I hear Vince trying to come on the show right now. Hold on just a second. Let's hear. I think it's about to ring. Nope, I was mistaken.
I mean, I just wanted to go on there and spew some lies and, badmouth, make personal slanderous attacks right there. And, and they wasn't having none of it. So I did see, and I took a screenshot. I saw another person said afterwards, none of these comments make sense. What are y'all talking about? What are y'all talking about? But if you go to the next cut 6, this is what the lady was posting about and saying, what are y'all? No, is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, they go to, I mean, look, I would have responded to you guys and I would have debated you, but you can't hear the other side on the Vince Maggio page because you're blocked and deleted, and we have to silence anything that challenges what you're being told. You can't know the other side. That's the difference, in transparency and a lack of transparency. The transparency here is that I'm willing to talk and debate and argue with any of y'all, not fight, not cut your throat or any of that stuff. I'm willing to debate any of y'all. Bring Juliana, a trained lawyer. Bring it. Let's debate.
Right.
But no, you can't have open dialogue with the Vince Maggio campaign. That you can't have.
Well, all right. Now, so I'm just shocked though what's in the comment above that from our good friend, and I still owe him a lunch, by the way, at that Mexican place up there on Benton Road. Rusty Lombardino. I mean, he's saying you're switching to the Good Old Boys Network, Duke, so it must be true if Rusty's saying it.
I don't know exactly what that means. I'm switching. I don't understand that. I would have loved to have gotten more context, but I don't understand what he's saying. That doesn't make sense to me.
Well, Rusty does say some odd things all the time.
And Dwayne Parr says, and your point is? My point is it's against the law to use the government to endorse a candidate. And I'm not saying Vince is a bad guy. I'm just saying you can't do that. That's not legal. You can't do that.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is he doesn't support term limits. He literally voted against them 10 times, and he voted for them twice. One of the times he on video says, I pushed the wrong button. It was an accident. And then says, I don't support term limits. Mr. Parr, the last time that he voted, he was under court order to vote, or if he didn't vote for it, he would have been found in contempt of court. But now he says he supports term limits and telling the public he supports term limits. That's not true. That's not the story. They say what I'm saying is a lie. Or not just me, all of us. They're saying it, all of us saying he doesn't support term limits, and that's not true. They're saying we're liars, and that's true.
Well, I mean, just because he says it now because he needs it for the votes, I mean, that doesn't make it so.
I want to challenge you to do something, Rex.
Uh-oh.
Can you pull up Groke?
Yes, I can. Let's see. Didn't you share that out with me just a little bit ago? Is that the same one you want to pull up?
I did. I shared you 1, 2, 3 links. I asked Groke 3 questions. 3 questions. And y'all are probably saying, Groke, what is he talking about? Well, it's the AI for X.
Yes.
And I asked basically what is the definition of term limits? Or
All right.
what is term limits?
All right, give me a second and I'll actually pull that one in because I've got the screenshot of that one. Hold on right there.
Yeah, and I can't read that, so you
I
narrate
got
this
it.
here.
All right, so Duke says, what is the definition of term limits in a political context? And the response was, again, this is AI, but it's unbiased. In a political context, term limits refer to legal restrictions that limit the number of terms or the total amount of time an elected official can serve in a particular office. These limits are typically set by a constitution, statute, or other governing rules and are designed to prevent individuals from holding power indefinitely, encourage fresh perspectives, and promote democratic turnover, lowercase d, and democratic turnover. For example, in the U.S., the president is limited to 2 4-year terms under the 22nd Amendment.
Well, that's all good.
Blah, blah,
That's all
blah.
good.
Yeah, blah, blah, blah.
Blah. But the key point, term limits refer to legal restrictions that limit the number of terms or the total amount of time an elected official can serve in a particular office.
Right.
That's a very important distinction because what Vince and what the people that are advocates of him supporting term limits, and they're saying is because he supports the Charter Commission stuff. Well, do those limit a person and how long they can hold an office?
Wait a minute. All right, hold that thought for a second, but we've got to go back even further. What was the purpose of the Charter Commission to begin with? Let's do a little quick rewind. What was the purpose of the Charter Commission?
Oh, well, we haven't had a charter revision in a coon's age, Rex. We've got so many problems with the Charter Commission. In fact, we couldn't even do it when Chris Smith proposed it right in the beginning of his and Tommy Chandler's term, but somewhere down the road shortly thereafter, they absolutely we got to do it because our charter's so outdated. We got to make some fixes. We got to do it.
Got to do it right then and there and got to get through it. So in essence, the Charter Commission was to let's just say confuse, thwart, whatever word you want to use, the term limits movement. Now, originally, when Preston Friedley was on the Charter Commission and Shane Cheatham and our good friend David Johnson, who all left the Charter Commission, they were going to put in what we would claim on the Term Limits Coalition side, a decent set of revisions. They were well on their way to the charter, including term limits. But once they got all run off, Preston was run off. I mean, he was basically blackmailed. Oddly, that all changed. The good old boys and the good old gals that were appointed by the good old boys, and, Judas Jeter, Benedict Arnold Jeter, managed to twist and warp that. And so they were left with no choice. The city council was left with no choice but to go ahead and vote for the Charter Commission deal.
So a few people may be scratching their heads because I think we egregiously missed a point here. They are saying, and Vince Maggio is saying, he supports term limits and he voted for term limits. The Charter Commission amendments are not term limits. And the reason they're not term limits because it doesn't limit them from the amount of total time they can serve in office.
Right.
They can serve as many times as they want. The only thing their amendments do is forces you to sit out one term and then you can run again.
Right.
Run, exhaust 3 terms, sit out one, then run again. There's no limit to how many times you can be in that office. There's no limit whatsoever.
All right, but look, let's play point counterpoint for a second here. So I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball. So the other side says, well, yeah, but the voters get to decide, and if they have to sit out one term, then they're not likely to be voted in again. But there's an inherent problem with that, and it is called entrenched interests. Okay? And add, jump in whenever you want to, but basically, somebody that has been in office for 20 years has built up these relationships with, on the federal side and state side, the lobbyists. There's probably not too much lobbying going on the city council side, but they will have built up these relationships with groups of people that donate to them and all that sort of thing. And it makes it much easier for an incumbent to get reelected, and also they have the advantage of name recognition. So the problem is that they have some inherent advantages over somebody that may feel the desire to serve on the city council and make their district better.
Such as donations from business interests that have a stake in being able to continue, or the need for government favoritism, just that need favor from, the elected officials, such as, companies that need the favor of them. I'm not going to say their names. We'll get to them in just a minute, and y'all can read between the lines. Maybe they need no bid contracts. Maybe they need public-private partnerships that makes these guys. And if you're a newcomer wanting to come in, you're going to have that deck stacked against you. The U.S. term limits .com or termlimits.com. Go to that, and you can read the story completely. And there's a couple of points here. The folks who advocate and say that Vince supports term limits, one of the things I hear out in the community that they say is that, well, these are the same, these Charter Commission amendments are the same term limits for the legislature and for the school board. Wrong. That's not true either. The legislature, and you once you're termed out in, say, the House, or you're termed out in the Senate, you can run for the other side of the legislature, but you can't run for the Senate again if you're termed out in the Senate. And if you're termed out in the House, you can't run for the House again. You're done. School board, once you max out, you can't do it again.
Right.
You're done. I got
You're
the
done.
links. They're not the same. They are not the same. And what they are saying is term limits is not term limits. It's just patently false. But somehow we are the liars.
Yeah.
So building up to cut 7, not going to go there yet. So a couple of shows back, you made a graphic, and with the Cadillac screaming down the road, and we recall and we talked about, and I hope all of you Maggio folks, this is your campaign. I hope you're watching, and I don't care if you get mad at us or not. And Vince, if you're watching, by all means, get mad as can be, because if my viewpoint has been that you've been a good guy. But if this is the way you have to win, I got to tell you, it's a reflection on you. But we heard Cassie reported and expressed that she was somewhat, maybe she wasn't intimidated, but I hate to say stalked, but one of the Maggio volunteers was aggressive out when she was out walking. Well, I understand there was another case where there was some aggressive behavior, and I'm not going to say which person with the campaign, but they specifically described the vehicle, and they described it as being a black SUV, and they thought it was a Cadillac. So,
Hence the subtle reference to the Cadillac in the graphics. Let's see. Mr. SatAL brings up a good point. He says Darby was first elected in 89, defeated in 93, got back in 97. Yeah, so that goes back to what we were talking about, the entrenched incumbent advantage. And I see Mr. Lowry is staring intently at his probable phone screen here. So we'll get back to what we were talking about. But yeah, if y'all go back and look, that's the reason that in today's show graphic, for the event for today's show, the Cadillac is there again. Now, whether it was an actual Cadillac, we're not sure. But that was the basic premise.
Yeah. So it was this black Cadillac that was, showing up on the streets, or it was this small black SUV that was showing up on the streets where this person was, and they noticed them, and in one instance they were getting out of their car, going up to a specific house, and it comes, speeding up aggressively around them as if to be intimidating, right?
Right.
So fast forward to today, or to Saturday, and my day starts out. I haven't walked and hit a single door or helped at all. But after that event with the Facebook page, I said, you know what, it's time. I'm gonna go out there. So I went out there, right? And right out of the gate in the morning, I have a little black SUV pull up beside me, and it's a couple of I'm on the street. It's a couple of Vince Maggio supporters, and they say, "Are you walking for Vince?" And I said, "Nope, sure not." And they said, "Oh, so you're a part of that line campaign?" And I said, "Well, if you call educating the public on Vince voting against term limits 10 times and voting yes 2 times, one that he admitted on video by accident, and the second by court order, or else he'd be in contempt of court, as lies," I said, "then yeah, I guess so." And they said, "Well, he's going to win anyway." And I said, "Well, he may win, but he won't win without the public knowing the truth." And they sped off. So that was early in the morning. Then during the day, I noticed this same black small SUV. Every time I turn on the street, I see this small SUV pulls onto the street where I was, like it's monitoring me.
It was shadowing you.
Shadowing me, monitoring me, stalking me. I don't know what you would call it. And I'm like, what? Who is this idiot? What is going on?
Maybe they were trying to learn from the best.
So by the end of the day, right? By the end of the day, I'm walking on Melrose. So I go down and I park down by Melrose, at the end of Melrose, over there by Zaxby's or the chicken place down there close to Walmart, and I'm walking down Melrose. Well, I get all the way over to the end of Melrose, almost to Benton Road, and I just happened to go up to a door, and this young man is at the door, and I'm fixing to hand him the flyer, and then all of a sudden I see him shrinking back away from the door. And he's not looking at me. It's like he's holding it in one hand, I'm holding it in the other, and he's shrinking away from the door. But he's looking past me, and I turn around. Well, there's this jackass that was in the car, standing behind the car with a video camera. And the guy says, "I'm not doing this," and jets back in the house. Well, I knew the guy was a Maggio thing, so I hold the flyer up to him and I said, "Here, you want the URL code where you can show everybody where Vince voted no against term limits and all of that, so they can see for themselves?" And he holds his camera down, and he walks around the car and walks in the house, and I'm like, "Ooh, that's odd. How that's pretty
strange."
Walks into the house. So I was like, okay, something's off here. So I immediately go out to the street, right? And that's public right away. So he's videoing me. So I see his car. His car's halfway parked out in the middle of the street. Traffic's like jetting around his car. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to wait on him. I'm going to get my video camera out. And I'm going to play video camera back with him. I wasn't ready for that. And cue the video. And,
All right.
and I think I realized who he was. And I asked. Anyway, so that right there, and I think this is the guy that, one of the guys was chasing aces.
Oh,
hey, ain't
that's
you with
interesting.
chasing aces? Isn't that you with chasing aces? So do you come up, any opponent, you come up and intimidate the opponents of the person you're supporting? Okay, well, hey, don't create a road hazard next time. Unless Vince gives you permission.
Boy, he didn't want to talk at all, did he? Who the hell parks like that?
Well, I guess he had been stalking me all day, waiting for the opportunity to catch me at a place where he could come up and try to video. He could have walked with me. He didn't have to sneak around. I mean, I would have even. I'll talk to him right now if he wants to come on the show.
Well,
he doesn't have to.
This is what I'm talking about, folks. Look, the entire time Vince has been on the city council, I mean, you could probably count on you could count definitely on one hand and have a few extra fingers the number of times Vince has actually said anything worthwhile in a meeting. But he definitely has not said anything of any real substance. And this is what I'm talking about right here. His campaign, if it would have been me, I would have come over and we'd have had a little conversation. If I was on his side of the fence with that.
Well, I mean, look, he's entitled to support whoever he wants. If he wants to ignore the facts and go out there trying to deceive the public about the record, he can go and do that. I mean, but you can't try to stop me or limit me from going out and campaigning against you. And all of these Vince Maggio people going out there and saying that we're lying and we're not telling the truth, we're welcome to debate it right here live on. I mean, let's debate it. Let's talk about it. Let's not sneak around subdivisions. Let's not stomp on signs. Let's not do all of that stuff. Let's not make personal attacks. Go to cut 8 now. But here's where this is. And this is okay. It's not okay. Get this. It's not okay to talk about the issues and the definition of term limits and whether you do or don't support term limits and why you believe you do support term limits and why I believe you don't support term limits. But it's okay to go digging into people's past, and whether a person has had a bad marriage or divorce or things like that. That's all fine to personally attack people. Apparently the Maggio camp thinks that that's okay. You can go and do all of that. All of the issues, everything in this campaign has been about issues, and we stand ready to debate any of them. But the Maggio camp will not debate the issues. They're not going to debate any of the issues. It's going to be that everything we articulate, we're lying, and that we're all the devil and we're horrible people. And you know what? Freaking people live lives and make mistakes. If you have to devolve to attacking people personally because I'm 5'5", that makes me short. I'm bald-headed. If that's what determine you've got to use as a campaign tactic because I'm a volunteer and I'm short and bald-headed, I mean, what does that say about you? That's horrible.
All right. So I just want to break this comment down a little bit from Rusty. Rusty says, I've been close friends with Vince Maggio for 40 years. He is one of the most caring person that I've ever known. He is constantly doing positive things for his district. This is like, again, verbatim what the pro-Robert Berry people, who were few and far between, were saying about Robert Berry. It's like almost verbatim. I'm sick and tired of him being trashed by BBQ Watch. Have we trashed Vince? other than politically. And what he does and does not stand for, what he has and has not done politically. Have we gone after Vince personally? Anybody? Bueller?
Well, I mean, Rex, what is being said is that Vince can't, a record votes, you can't talk about it.
Right.
It's off limits. So that what that means is you're opposed to a constitutional republic. You're opposed to people being able to run for office. There should be one size fits all. And I mean, we're not talking about the form of government that we even have. You should not be able to challenge people. That's what is being articulated by the Montgomery camp. I mean, the Maggio camp.
Well, it could be Montgomery camp too, for that matter, but yeah.
His voting record can't be challenged. It can't even be debated. You can't even talk about it.
Well, look, it's not hard to talk about or debate or challenge. He voted with David Montgomery and that side of the aisle every single time, hands down.
Yeah,
and
but
look,
no, you're trashing Vince if you talk about his record. You're trashing him. You're lying about him. If you even talk about him, unless you're saying you should vote for Vince, you're lying and you're trashing him. And the Maggio people are all like humming and singing this, saying, and now they're talking about people's marriages. They're talking about dirt and trash out there about anybody that doesn't support Vince.
Well, I'm just going to put this out there because Rusty is an elected member of the PEC, so he's fair game. Rusty, you might want to be careful where you take this, because I happen to remember a particular campaign where you and I were on the same side of the aisle for a guy named Ryan Gaddy when he ran again, or when Robert Mills was challenging him, and that was a very nasty race. And I'm just going to leave it at that, Mr. Lombardino. You really want to watch trying to trash somebody personally. Politically, fine. You want to talk about what the colonel says or any of us says at any of the meetings or anything Duke and I want to say on this show, fine. But you better watch the personal attacks, because I might have some old text messages and I might have some old phone calls I could dig through. I'm just saying.
No, well, here's what I'm saying. I mean, why can this not be about the issues? Why can this not be about, records regarding public office? Why can it not be about that? Why does it have to devolve to, the personal crap? And if I don't know how many, I mean, there's 100 people still watching this show, and I will go out on a limb and say that there's probably dirt on 90+% of the people right here, right now, including myself, that we can all go dig dirt and we can talk about people's personal lives and other stuff other than Vince and the issue. Right. So, but I'm not advocating for that, but the Maggio camp is advocating for that. So where does that stop? So how far do we want to go down that road? How much dirt do we want to start digging into everybody? And personally, people who support campaigns. Here's the other thing, Rex. One of those comments I saw on one of those things was they just stir the pot. They don't even live here and have no interest in Bossier City, which is why we started out at the beginning of the show talking about our history being here in Bossier, which is a bald-faced lie, but trying to paint everybody that opposes Vince as being outsiders and people who don't have a stake. Well, you know what? This guy in this black car that came up to the door trying to intimidate me or the voter or whatever, and is, I think, the same person who's been being seen following other volunteers and in the same area. You know what? He doesn't live in Bossier City either. And oh, by the way, Rex, you just mentioned Ryan Gaddy. Ryan Gaddy is in the Vince camp, and that's fine. That's his right to do it.
Sure.
Ryan Gaddy doesn't live in the city. I don't think he's on the voter rolls of the city. And guess what? Oh, by the way, Rusty Lombardino doesn't live in the city. I mean, they.
The irony is just so thick here. It's
I mean,
almost hard to cut through it.
if we line the Maggio team up and we line the other team up, I mean, I got to tell you, I think the Maggio team is light on city people living in the city. If that's the metric.
Wait, you just had. That's a great idea. We need to line up and have a dodgeball game.
There you go. I'm down with it.
No more bungee jumping. We need dodgeball.
Hey, look, you stay away from Lisa Johnson. She told me she still watches us, even though you're a part of the show.
Well, yeah.
No.
Still kind of love you, like you, whatever, Lisa. You know, we still think you're a good person, even when we make fun of you, and you still owe us a bungee jump.
That's right. She still owes us a bungee jump, definitely. But okay. So I'm going to get off of this. I think we've made our point. And you can't. I don't think, and I'll take issue. So I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to challenge you.
Okay.
I'm going to challenge you because. So the meme you created for the show.
Yeah. Let me go find that one real quick. I'm listening. Go right ahead.
I want you to explain that one to me because I don't understand it. And if I were possibly on the other side, I would take offense to that.
All right, so let me put this up where everybody can see it full screen. Whoops, I covered this up. Okay, so I mean, I just get in these creative zones and just want to create things. So I decided to do some rats with barbecue, and
okay.
And the rats are pretty simple. I mean, they kind of have a dual subliminal messaging meaning behind them. But there was a post on one of the South Bossier Facebook groups from our good friend Julie Ferris, as in Pelican Training the Ferrises. And she put, "We have rats in our grocery store down here." Apparently, and you can go look at her post. I'm not making this up. Apparently, when she was in the local grocery store, I'm not going to say which one, you can go read the post and see. She says there was a loud scream around the bakery area. I think I'm telling the story right. And apparently, the bakery girl, a rat trap had gone off, and there was a huge rat. Apparently, the grocery store has some kind of rat problem. And in full disclosure, most grocery stores are places that have food. Rodents are always a problem, and they have to stay on top of that. So, I was going to talk about that, but I thought, let's put some rats in a Cadillac with some black writing on it, and let's put Vince hates term limits and loves Lee Jeter. And the Cadillac is pulling a thing of barbecue, which has a sign, Bossier Famous Barbecue, on it. So, there's a lot of meanings in those graphics that we put out for the show. Does that give you a pretty good explanation of it now, Mr. Lauer? Are you a little clued in as to why? But I guess the question would be, wait a minute, what does Lee Jeter have to do with Vince Maggio and barbecue?
Well, what I was going to say is I don't. If I were on the other team, I would take offense to the being labeled as rats.
Well, but, parody.
I wanted to. Well, I don't know that that's necessarily funny.
Did I put any names on anybody? Double meaning.
But if
they don't like it, they can just scroll right on by too.
But if it's already devolved to personal stuff, if we're not going to talk about the issues and we're going to talk about personal stuff, then where is the limit?
Where is the limit?
Where is the limit? I mean,
well, here's the thing. Vince is a sitting politician running for re-election again. He's fair game. Thus, the people helping him are fair game. However, look, people like Vince, Vince is their friend, whatever, they're going to support Vince. That's fine and dandy. Again, I didn't put any names on this. And the rats is actually, you can go check the post from Julie Ferris's post earlier about South Bossier and grocery store. So there is a double meaning with the, of course, with the barbecue and the sign on the barbecue bandwagon back there where it says Vince hates term limits and loves Lee Jeter or loves Jeter, but there's a problem there because Jeter's a Democrat. I thought Vince was this ultra conservative, Trump loving, Mike Johnson loving Republican.
Donald Trump loving. Donald Trump
Yeah.
loving. I mean, all the Vince people love some Republican Donald Trump. All of them. But yet, for some reason, it seems we're throwing in with the Jeter people. Now, this was sent to us, and I can't confirm nor deny, but I was told, and I don't know if it's accurate or not, but maybe somebody who was there participated or got their free barbecue. But apparently on Saturday during early voting, if you showed up there to produce your early voting sticker, you could have gotten free barbecue. Care of Vince Maggio and Lee Jeter together, the team.
Maybe, full disclosure, maybe the barbecue truck owner, barbecue trailer owner was a Lee Jeter supporter and a Vince Maggio supporter. Maybe he's double confused. I don't know.
Well, I don't know if this is true or not, but on the same information that came from this source, I don't know whether it's true or not, they indicated that they thought this might have been the Whitman's trailer.
Oh.
In which it's no secret that the Whitmans are aligned with Maggio, and that's fine.
Served on the charter commission. Vicky did. Her husband's a city marshal.
But here's the problem. You've got two Republicans in the race, Creighton Cochran and Chris Smith. And how is it that, Republican diehard Mike Johnson, Donald Trump, conservative Vince Maggio is, helping the Democrat opponent against them? I mean, if there wasn't two other Republicans in that race, I could see it. But I don't know. Things that make you go, this is one of them.
And look, this is not a lie. This is not Photoshop, nothing like this. This is an actual picture of an actual trailer with a Vince Maggio and a Lee Gunny Jeter sign. So there it is.
That's fine if they want to support, a Democrat in the race against two obviously conservative Republicans. That's certainly fine. But again, to all the Republicans up there in that district, I mean, why are they just now being able to learn about this? I mean, why didn't Maggio endorse Lee Jeter?
Right.
Why did he not let every Republican in his district know that he was supporting Lee Jeter? I mean, I think it's fair to know. I mean, he didn't make any bones about it that he was supporting, he's a Donald Trump, Mike Johnson. He had no problems making sure they knew that. Why didn't he make sure they knew he was with Lee Jeter?
Inquiring minds want to know.
It seems strange. And y'all can drive down East Texas right now and go see the trailer yourself. And my question is everybody from Green Acres and all that, are y'all all invited to come down maybe on election day or this week to get free barbecue if you bring your sticker? Are they going to give you?
I wonder if they're using the city marshal office to run their barbecue business.
Well, I don't know. I mean, but you can get a fence out of the marshal's office.
Oh, that's right. It's the fence business, not the barbecue business.
Yeah, okay. You can get a free fence out of, again, I mean, we're lying. We only showed the phone number and the Facebook page you can call. That's literally on the phone bill of the marshal's office. But again, we're trash boys and liars. And
we lie on people, and I hate the improper use of the pronoun. It's lie about, not lie on people. I'm not going to jump on Vince Maggio and lie on him there.
You're gonna have to. Anyway. You're gonna have to cut that. You're trash, boy. You have to get that little one sound bite to where we can just play that one sound bite. But hey, I'm not through. I'm not through. So, hey, did you see that I sent an email down to City Hall today?
Well, no, I did not, but enlighten me.
Well, you remember the sign drama with Marlon and
Yes.
and the
Marlon Brown, I think,
trashy
was his name.
the
Yeah.
trashy Colonel Crockett taking Vince's signs back and being
Oh,
polite,
yeah.
and then
Yep.
he's a boy and all that stuff. Well, the interesting thing is what I recall is I immediately sent public information requests off to the mayor, Charles Jacobs, and I think Richard Ray was on it, to get the body cam footage from the officers and as well the communications from the police chief to Vince Maggio, because I understand he called the police chief, and the police report. And, usually the way that goes when we file public information requests, the city attorney will respond back and say, give me so many days to prepare this.
Right.
In that case, I filed it on February the 26th. And, he said, give me the 10 days. Well, here we are. It's the 18th of March. It's been at well over 10 days. Well, I sent a follow-up email today and no response. So it got me to thinking, maybe we don't have the body cam footage of the police officers going to Marlon's house, going to the other places where Colonel picked up, where the police went and got the statements from the people that, told Colonel what to do, and or even the video of Vince with the officers trying to get Colonel Crockett arrested. Maybe it's because the city attorney and Richard Ray are on the campaign team for Vince Maggio.
Oh, they might be stonewalling,
dragging
it out.
Maybe they're intentionally delaying our public information request for the benefit of a campaign to which they're supporting. And you say,
those are strong accusations, Mr. Lowry.
I know I'm just a liar, but why do I feel strongly that they're involved in this campaign? There's some event that makes me think that they had a role in starting his campaign.
Let me think back. Maybe the folks in the comments watching the show can help us out. Let me think. Let's see. What was... Oh, I think I know what it was. It was, what do they have to do? What do candidates have to do at the very beginning of a race to officially...
they have to go to the courthouse.
They have to go to the courthouse. That's right. And Vince hurried down there, had a whole entourage, did a press briefing and everything when he went and qualified. That's the word, qualified. Went and qualified for the race. Am I remembering that correctly?
I think you're remembering it, but wait a minute. Wait a minute. There may be a flaw in your assessment, if I recall correctly.
Maybe my memory is bad.
I don't think he went to the courthouse.
Oh,
come
he
to
didn't.
think of it.
What happened there? There was something going... Oh, I think he was sick that day.
Yeah, he was sick, and somebody took care of all of that in his stead. Oh, that's right. I think the names on the documents were a couple of people.
Surely it was not the assistant city attorney / assistant DA and his boss, one of his bosses, the city attorney / former judge. Wait, it was them, wasn't it?
It was them. So us not getting those videos, could that be construed as they are, well, I don't know what legal. We got some legal smeagles on here. What could that be?
Yeah. Inquiring minds.
I don't know. It's just an epiphany. But I mean, I know it's just, look, we're just nothing but liars making that crap up. It really didn't happen that way. It ain't happened at all. It is a figment of all of our imaginations.
Yes. The only thing about all this is, folks, if you go back and watch most of our shows, the stuff we get on our soapbox about, and, granted, it's absolutely with our bias and our opinions, even when we don't always agree, we usually have, how do the cool kids term it these days? Oh, we usually have the receipts to back it up. So we usually have some sort of documentation or something that has tripped our trigger?
Well, look, I am open to be challenged on any of the assertions I've made. And if I'm wrong, I will say I'm wrong. But, this crap of calling me a liar and saying that what I'm saying, what thing am I lying about? He does not support term limits. What he is saying is term limits is not term limits. It's not. And I stand here ready. Correct us, challenge us,
Yeah.
show us where we're lying. Any of you people accusing us, do it. We're waiting.
Look, here's the deal. We only have 2. Thank you, Miss Jerry, in the comments for reminding me. The recalcitrant 5 is now down to the recalcitrant 2. So the deal with all of this is you got to make sure if you're in District 5 or you have a friend, family member, or neighbor who is in District 5 in Vince's district and they're able to go vote, they need to go vote. And of course, we staunchly support Miss Ruth Pope Johnston. If we get Vince out of there, that is going to cut it down to just one of the recalcitrant 5. And of course, Miss Deborah Ross has a strong chance of defeating that other recalcitrant, Mr. Jeff Darby, and picking that tick off of the hound dog.
Well, let me wrap up with one thing. If you're one of those people and you live in District 5 and you want to have your cake and eat it too, go vote for Ruth Pope Johnson. Then go down there to East Texas to the barbecue shack, take your sticker, and get you some of that free barbecue. You'll have your cake and eat it too.
Hey, that's a good idea. Interesting thought, Mr. Lauer. All right. It has been a fun show and a very educational show. Very educational for me.
Yeah.
I've learned that you're switching sides, switching teams, going over to the good old boys. That was a great revelation tonight. We may have to rename the show something else. I don't know. But also learned a lot about the constitutional amendment, so I'm going to pay a little closer attention to those, and I may be changing my mind on that. I would encourage everybody to go back and look at our post. I think it was March the 12th. We've got the PAR guide, the summary guides to the amendments. We also have the counterpoints from LA CAG posted as well, so you have point and counterpoints on both sides of the issue. That's pretty much all I got for tonight. I mean, as far as Vince and the rest of them go, it's business as usual. He's trying to run it like a little mafia.
Well, I mean, what I find interesting, I can't wait to see the campaign finance reports, but I'm going to bet that he will spend more money than both of the at-large, or all 3 of the at-large candidates spend total. And you just have to, why?
Yeah.
Why?
It's insane.
It makes no sense.
Now, Miss Jerry, give her a comment here. She says, so talk about Ross and Pope Johnston. All right. So first things first, this is Bossier Watch. We're looking for the political insider baseball. If Miss Ruth or Miss Deborah, they have both been invited on the show, and they're welcome to come on anytime that they want. And we'll give them the platform. We may obviously have a few questions or whatever. They're more than welcome to. Have we had Miss Ruth on yet? I forget.
No, she hasn't been, actually.
Okay. So if she wants to come on, I've personally invited Miss Deborah as well. We've invited all politicians on the show. Look, Vince is welcome to come on the show.
So is Darby.
Yeah.
The independent Darby. I remember
All
we
of
said
them.
one time he was a Democrat. We got a message that we needed to correct it, and he was right. He wasn't a Democrat. He's an independent.
But look, with all of the candidates or all of the politicians, just like, when Mr. Chris Smith got a little upset with me, but look, he's a stand-up guy. He came on the show. That doesn't mean that we're going to give you softballs just because we tend to support and like you. We're going to ask some serious questions. So anyway, everybody's welcome to come on the show.
Anyway, that's all for tonight for me. I'm done. I'm out.
That's it. We're out. We're out of here, folks. I'm going to hit the finish button. I'm not even going to do the pitch about using Proton Mail and send an email to bossierwatch at Proton Mail anonymously if you have something you want to share. I'm not even going to mention that tonight.
Yeah. Hey, and all you haters, y'all can hate me more tomorrow. Just take a break right now. Go to bed. Wake up tomorrow. Hate me more tomorrow. It's fine.
We're out of here.
Good night.